Number 10. Grim Knight. The origin story of the Grim Knight is similar to the Batman of Prime Earth, but is warped. Instead of the Dark Knight, we know him as the Grim Knight, because this Batman is not afraid to use guns. So yes, you could say he's similar to the OG Batman from the 40s, but he is also far more brutal and ruthless. This version of Batman ended up killing Joe Chill when he was just a child. After Chill shot his parents, he stumbled away in the darkness, but Chill tripped and dropped his gun and Martha Wayne's necklace. While he searched for the necklace in the dark, a young Bruce grabbed the gun and aimed it at Chill, killing him in cold blood with tears in his eyes. This set Bruce down the path of believing that killing was the best way to deal with criminals that opposed justice. This version of Bruce was still inspired by a bat crashing through his window to become Batman, but he also shot that bat when it did. Number 9. Death of Superman. After Superman dies at the hands of Doomsday, Lois becomes depressed and jaded, believing that the world failed Clark. She ends up merging with the Eradicator, who claims it failed in its mission to resurrect the fallen Superman, and instead bonds with Lois so that she can succeed where she believes other heroes have failed, fighting on in Clark's name. However, Lois goes too far compared to Superman, killing those who oppose her, villains and heroes alike. Superman returns, but only lives long enough to express his disappointment and disgust in what Lois Lane has become before he is killed by Cyborg Superman. Super depressing story. Number 8. The Merciless. Like the Earth-12 belonging to the non-dark multiverse, on Earth-12, Batman and Wonder Woman are also in a romantic relationship together. They fight side by side in a war that threatens to engulf the entire population of Earth against the god of war, Ares. After countless have died and they're basically the only two left standing, they finally succeed, but Batman feels in order to protect the world, he should be the one to wield Ares' power. Knowing that Wonder Woman herself would not take Ares' helmet and with it his power, and that she would actually not allow Bruce to take it for fear of it corrupting him, Batman sees no other choice but to kill Diana. He takes Ares' helmet for himself and fights on, claiming to fight in honor and in memory of the fallen warrior and his love, Wonder Woman. Number 7. Blackest Night. This is a wild story wherein Sinestro never shared the powers of the White Lantern. Here, Necron, who speaks through Darkseid, attempts to obliterate the entire universe. Sinestro is both Black and White Lantern, known as the Limbo Lantern, and sees only one way to save the universe, by creating a new universe in Dove's image, by plugging her into the source. This almost works, except at the last minute their ally, Mr. Miracle's conviction wavers, and he ends up killing Dove to avoid creating and living in a world without his wife Barda. Instead, Sinestro is forced to use the only teammate he has left, Lobo, to create a new universe. Yeah. Slim pickings, I guess. The world instead is made in Lobo's image, who taps into the source, eliminating all Black Lanterns and restarting a dark and more grotesque looking world which Sinestro remains trapped in, unable to leave due to Tempest preventing him from doing so. That sucks. Number 6. The Devastator. The Devastator is another twisted version of Bruce Wayne who was pushed too far. For mysterious reasons that remain unknown, the Superman of the Devastator's dark universe randomly underwent a change that caused him to go on a full-out rampage, killing everyone. Batman was one of the last few left to try and stop him, attempting to do so with a kryptonite spear. After Superman blasts off Batman's arm, however, he is driven to desperate measures. Batman is forced to activate his own version of the Doomsday virus, which takes over his body and transforms him into a Doomsday-like creature, becoming the Devastator. Although he fails in saving his world, he succeeds in killing the Superman of his universe, before heading out to try and save other alternate Earths by infecting them with the virus in order to protect them from their world Superman. Although, you know, they never really asked for that, so it's pretty horrifying. Number 5. Brother Blood. Brother Blood is a pretty terrifying villain, to be honest. He can control his victim's mind if he ends up acquiring his victim's blood. And that isn't just all. Getting their blood, there is a whole slew of powers he can exert over you. In the current continuity, Brother Blood can use the blood of his enemies to heal, rip open teleportation portals, and even project energy. Oh, and he also gains the powers of those whose blood he has tasted. Ew. And of course, once he has your blood, he can also use it to control you, bending you to his will and making you do his bidding. Not only does that mean you are in danger of losing your own free will if you go up against him, but it also means you have to deal with all his servants who have already done so. He also happens to be a weirdly like likable guy, so it's pretty easy for him to attract new willing followers to his cause. Currently in the comics, Brother Blood is even using his charismatic personality to present himself as a now redeemed villain, intent on helping to find a new planet for those who join his cause to live on in response to the global climate crisis that the world is experiencing. But we'll have to wait and see if this redemption is actually the real deal or not. I'm not buying it so far, and I'm really excited for when Brother Blood is like, I am a villain, the whole time I've been a villain. Yes. Number 4. Darkseid. Darkseid has to be one of the most fearsome villains out there. He is not only the ruler of Apocalypse with an army at his back, but he also has some of the most ruthless, cruel, and elite soldiers in the cosmos. Darkseid has fought and defeated many heroes in the past, even seemingly at one point permanently defeating Batman, although Batman would return and be revealed to have not been permanently taken out actually. Darkseid is terrifying because he is inevitable, best summed up by 2 words: Darkseid is. Number 3. Perpetua. Perpetua is an old evil, but one that we didn't know of in the comics until 2018, when she was first introduced in Justice League Volume 4, issue number 8. Perpetua quickly became known as one of the greatest evils the universe or multiverse had ever known. She was the creator, basically, of all things, and the mother to the Anti-Monitor, World Forger, and Over-Monitor. She pretty much embodies the dark multiverse in a way. Well, her, I guess, and the Batman Who Laughs, who comes from the dark multiverse. She is known for being one of the most powerful beings in the multiverse and is considered an Omega-level cosmic entity, basically an evil goddess who is fueled by crisis energy and aims to use it to destroy and rebuild the entire multiverse. Number 2. Batman Who Laughs. Although he may currently be defeated in the comics, make no mistake that the Batman Who Laughs remains one of the most terrifying characters to come out of DC Comics' dark multiverse. Batman Who Laughs hails from the Earth of -22 and is a version of Bruce Wayne who ended up being turned insane by exposure to the Joker venom. This version of Bruce killed all of his fellow Bat family members except for Damian, who he instead recruited to join him. Batman Who Laughs would serve Barbados, the Bat God, and go on to assemble an army of Dark Knights for him from across the dark multiverse to join him in reshaping and conquering all of reality. From there, he would ally himself with Perpetua and would even go on to betray her, revealing the whole time that he sought to conquer the multiverse himself, so he might reshape it in his own image, becoming one of the most feared villains in all of DC's history. Number 1. Upside Down Man. While not officially stated as such, the Upside Down Man is kind of godlike in his appearance in DC Comics. He is the dark reflection of Hecate, who is quite dark herself, so that is honestly saying something. And she is considered to be a goddess and powerful witch, so I think we can consider him to be at a god level, and of course Upside Down Man is also a powerful magic user who seeks to invade and devour the Prime Earth reality after being trapped for millennia in the dark multiverse with the other kind, banished there by Hecate, or Hecate, whatever you prefer.
Number 10. Mazaz. On Earth 3, things are kind of backwards. Power and strength reign supreme, and those who are superheroes and villains in the Prime Universe are supervillains and heroes respectively in Earth 3. Alexander Luthor, for example, was the most powerful superhero on Earth, going by the name Mazaz, which is Shazam backwards. Now, he's technically a good guy, but his power is what I find truly terrifying. Mazaz has the ability to absorb the powers of any superpowered being that he took the life of through his lightning. Using this, he gained all the powers of Bizarro, including invulnerability, self-sustenance, Arctic vision, flame breath, and kryptonite immunity. He got the powers of the Firestorm Matrix from Deathstorm, which are too many to list, the Speed Force abilities from Johnny Quick, and the powers of Hawkwing. While the characters he fought were arguably worse than him, no one from Earth 3 is really good, and he is absolutely terrifying, when he is powered up of course. Number 9. Bump in the Night. For starters, DC's House of Horror is basically a collection of short stories featuring different characters. They are all equally interesting and horror themed. The Possession of Billy Batson and Last Laugh stories are particularly interesting, but for today's video, I think I want to talk about the very first one. Bump in the Night. This short story follows Martha Kent on the night Kal-El arrives on Earth. Jonathan Kent has gone out to explore what exactly caused a big bang and a trail of smoke on the Kent's farm, but he isn't coming back. As Martha worries about where her husband has gone to, she goes back inside the house, but Martha starts hearing bumping and thumping coming from upstairs in the house. Suddenly, a demonic humanoid child crashes through the ceiling and begins attacking her. She tries to run to the barn, but fiery beams of energy fire from the creature creature blowing up the barn. She takes refuge in her truck only for the creature to land on the hood, shrieking. It throws the truck across the yard and Martha gets out wounded only for the truck to explode. The creature flies away with the symbol of an S emblazoned on his chest. If you are looking for comic book content, this is the place to find it, so hit us with a subscribe to stay inundated with tons of videos about all your favorite heroes. Thank you. Number 8. Speed Demon from the Amalgam Universe. The Amalgam Universe, where the worlds of Marvel and DC collide, is honestly an amazing place. We get all kinds of crazy mashups like Wolverine and Batman, but while that is incredibly awesome, the one I think may be better for this list would be Blaze Allen, the Speed Demon, or basically the Flash mashed together with Ghost Rider. Yes, it's as crazy as it sounds, and honestly, it's more totally awesome than it is scary, but Ghost Rider is already fast with his motorcycle, so imagine if he didn't even need that. The best part of this is that his cousin, Wally West, becomes another version of Speed Demon, and the two of them work together. It's not something that I thought I needed, but I absolutely did need it. Number 7. Witch-marked Wonder Woman. Years ago, a 12-year-old Diana Prince came upon a ritual being performed at a crossroads in Themyscira to the goddess of magic and witches, Hecate, by her followers. Diana gets grabbed by the followers and Hecate brands her with a witch mark, and she vowed to Hippolyta that one day she would return to use her witch mark to take over the world. Once things start popping off in the 2018 Witching Hour crossover, Earth's magic is beginning to disappear and Hecate is obviously to blame. Hecate activates her witch mark, 5 women who have been branded, including Diana. The witch marked power Diana possesses could rip the world apart and tear holes in reality. It's honestly very insane, and it only gets crazier as she gains the power of the other witch marked. Now I glossed over quite a bit for the sake of time, so I suggest you read the story. Number 6. Dawnbreaker. Now this is like a mix of evil Green Lantern and evil Bruce Wayne. Technically, it's just Bruce Wayne, but after the passing of his parents that fateful night, the young Bruce Wayne comes into possession of a Green Lantern ring. We have seen Bruce Wayne wield a Green Lantern ring before, but this is the dark multiverse. Bruce has an unbelievably strong will, and using his powerful will, he is able to override the programming of the Lantern ring, allowing him to use it to take lives. He creates monstrously terrifying green-like constructs and uses them to not just ruthlessly battle criminals, but anyone who stands in his way, including James Gordon, other Green Lanterns, and the Guardians of the Universe. Number 5. Pig. Professor Pig is a villain that came to be during a time when Batman stories were becoming incredibly dark, and Pig himself has to be one of the darkest villains of that era. His methods completely disgust the Dark Knight. He looks like a character straight out of a horror or slasher movie, and his obsession with physical perfection, like in the myth of Pygmalion, became part of the reason he surgically mutilates his victims, turning them into his mind-controlled servants called Dolotrons. If his crimes weren't horrifying enough, then just look at him. Yeah. Get out of my nightmares, thank you. Bye. Number 4. Scarecrow. With Scarecrow, fear is the name of the game. I don't believe Batman is actually scared of Scarecrow himself, but Scarecrow has used his fear toxin to debilitate and send the Dark Knight running on multiple occasions, and that makes him a unique foe that puts Batman in a position he doesn't often find himself in. Batman is a physical powerhouse with a mind that is exceedingly sharp, but his mind is also partially his biggest weakness because he has some serious psychological issues, and Scarecrow's whole shtick is manipulating that kind of thing. When Scarecrow pops up on the scene, the Dark Knight knows that something terrifying is coming his way. Number 3. The Court of Owls. Probably the oldest, most secretive, and most profitable group in Gotham City's underworld. When Bruce Wayne became a threat to them, they put Batman through one hell of a psychological ringer, and possibly one of the darkest Batman stories ever. He gets trapped in a huge Court of Owls maze underneath Gotham City, and trying to make his way through it, Batman goes through physical and psychological tests that nearly break the Dark Knight. But the court has so many feathers in all areas of Gotham and Bruce Wayne's own life. They may have even had a hand in the passing of his parents. Possibly. And we haven't even started talking about the Talons, a group of brainwashed and undead robot-like assassins. The combo of psychological warfare and the deadly Talons nearly brought Bruce Wayne to the pearly gates. Number 2. Bane. His name says it all, as Bane has been the bane of Batman on multiple occasions. The Bane we saw in the Dark Knight Rises movie was fantastic, and he absolutely instilled fear in Batman, but the comic version of that same story goes to a whole other another level. With his master plan being even more well thought out and damaging to Batman, he unleashed Arkham Asylum on Gotham, putting Batman on the ropes as he has to chase down all the escaped criminals. Bane studied Batman. He utilizes his own weaknesses and completely destroys Batman, breaking his back in one of the most infamous comic book moments ever. More recently though, Bane brought Batman even lower than when he broke his spine because he broke Bruce's heart by snapping the neck of Alfred Pennyworth. Any battle Batman has fought against Bane has been with the help of his allies, and that's because Batman knows that he can't take on Bane alone. Number 1. The Joker. I think if there is one person who scares Batman more than anyone, it's gotta be the Joker. They have had such a long and complex history with each other, and I think because of that, and the Joker's obsession with the Bat, Joker knows all the ways to mess with Batman, and he's constantly coming up with new ones. He will go after anyone to get at Batman, and he will go through anyone just for the fun of it. He's unpredictable. Batman never knows for sure where he will strike and what he will do unless the Joker wants Batman to know. Everything is a game that he knows the rules to. The other thing about Joker is that he would never actually take the Dark Knight's life. In fact, I feel like he would probably destroy anyone who tries to. This just makes him more terrifying as he simply wants to be a constant cause of fear and anxiety for the Dark Knight, and he is.
In at number 10, the nail. As the title suggests, it's literally a nail that shatters the potential future for Superman, and if you're a fan of The Last Son of Krypton, then this Elseworlds story is a must read. 24 years in the past, a flat tire caused by a nail in the truck of Jonathan and Martha Kent stopped them from ever discovering that Kryptonian spaceship with baby Clark inside. As such, the present day team only consists of Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, The Flash, Hawkwoman, The Atom, Martian Manhunter, and the Green Lantern. A lot goes down without Superman being there to carry most of the team. I mean, the Joker lets out prisoners in Arkham Asylum with these energy generating gauntlets that he also used to trap Batman and kill both Robin and Batgirl. Wonder Woman becomes not so wonderful when she's framed for destroying the White House, which leads to rioting, and this outbreak and disorder and chaos ultimately leads to Lex Luthor controlling the United States and using flying robots to enforce his laws. So if you're a fan of the Justice League, you should definitely read this one because it's a whole new thing without Superman. The whole team dynamic changes to the point where Green Lantern is the strongest hero.
Moving on to number 9, we've got Speeding Bullet. This DC Elseworlds story explores the idea of what the DC world would look like if Superman never landed in Kansas, but rather landed in Gotham. So as such, he would be plucked up and raised by Thomas and Martha Wayne instead of John and Martha Kent. I know, 2 Marthas, but hey, if you can put that aside for a moment to embrace this bulletproof Batman, then you'll realize how cool the story is. However, even with this new Bruce Wayne Kal-El hybrid, the Bat's parents are still fatally killed. Unfortunately, that's usually their fate in these storylines. Although it's what also leads to this universe's Bruce Wayne to discover his supernatural abilities and decides to use them to fight crime as the Batman. He's so shocked by his parents being killed that he actually blasts the criminal with his laser eyes, which is just so satisfying. So if you've ever said to yourself, man, how cool would it be if Batman had superpowers? Well, you're in luck, my friend, because Speeding Bullets is all that and more.
In at number 8, Red Rain. The story of Dracula has been used many times in the past by both Marvel and DC Comics, but Red Rain took things to a whole new level of creepy vampire stories. In this Batman Elseworlds tale, we see the Dark Knight defending Gotham from the Lord of the Vampires. What a cool name. Ultimately, Batman becomes a vampire as well, but we feel like that almost makes sense for his character. The repercussions of such a dark Batman storyline leads to a tragic telling of Gotham's mightiest heroes and villains. Plus, the story for this DC Elseworlds comic isn't the only reason why we encourage you to read it. The artwork is absolutely unparalleled and has been said that it's the eeriest Batman art to date. So whether you're a longtime fan of the dark versions of the Bat, or if you just enjoy scary stories in general, Red Rain is a must read.
Moving on to number 7, Red Sun. Superman Red Sun was a 3-part miniseries published in 2003 and begins with the premise of what if Superman had been raised in the Soviet Union. When Kal-El's spacecraft lands on a Ukrainian farm instead of in Kansas, we see a drastically dark transformation of the Superman we know and love. He goes from fighting for truth and justice to being described as the champion of the common worker who fights a never-ending battle for Stalin, socialism, and the international expansion of the Warsaw Pact. Yikes. The writers make it very clear that even the last son of Krypton
is not immune to nationalism. This scary story shows just how easily the nurturing in a particular area of the world at a particular time in history could radicalize even the noblest amongst us. The plot uses the real history of Soviet Russia post-World War II, bringing to life the perspective from America's opposition and dropping Superman into the mix of it all.
In at number 6, Justice Riders. If you're a fan of the HBO show Westworld and comic books as well, Justice Riders is a must-read for you. Although admittedly it has nothing to do with the show Westworld and precedes its time, it is an exploration of the Justice League as heroes in the Wild Wild West. The excellent thing with this storyline is that it never depends on Superman or Batman to make things exciting. As you can tell from our last few points, much of the DC Elseworld usually has a prime focus on either Bruce Wayne or Clark Kent in their alternate forms. However, for this one, it's a world in which Wonder Woman, Flash, and Martian Manhunter trade in their outfits for a more cowboy-style appearance. Never has Wonder Woman's lasso made more sense than in this storyline. It's truly a breath of fresh air if you're growing tired of all the Batman and Superman-based stories.
Number 5, Dr. Death. Now, if that name doesn't already scare you, then hold on to your hats because this villain is truly something. Originally a scientist working for Wayne Enterprises, Dr. Carl Helfern was working on a nanomedicine to try and create a serum to make human bones harden upon impact to prevent breakage. Unfortunately, this project failed and was a large reason that led to Helfern's slow descent into insanity, the other reasons being his son's death and the loss of his job at Wayne Enterprises. Thanks to a later partnership with Edward Digma, a breakthrough was discovered, and that got the entire process working again and set him on his path down to his villain side. With the success of his formula, Helfern injected it into himself, granting him superhuman strength and a regeneration ability. Eventually taking the name Dr. Death, Helfern kills his research group by injecting them with the failed formula which causes their bone to grow uncontrollably and then rip them apart from the inside out. Dr. Death was eventually and thankfully stopped by Batman, who incapacitated the villain by breaking his bones in such a way that they would grow back irregularly. The sheer pressure and uncomfortability of his new physique led to Helfern's death, as his struggle against his own skeleton caused his skull to cave in and crush his brains. Number 4, Crib. Now, despite sounding like a lovely place to keep your baby, this member of the Sinestro Corp is far from that. She targets Green Lantern members who have recently had children, then she'll secrete a poison liquid from her breast to subdue their parents, and then have them watch with their dying breaths as she takes their children and tosses them into her crib-like hunchback. As the parents die, she leaves them claiming she'll raise them as her own as orphans of the Green Lantern Corps. Now, not only is that terrifying, but it's also never really explained why, which, the mystery in that just makes it all the more unsettling. Thankfully, Crib is subdued by Kyle Rayner and is sent to Zamaron to have the Zamarans rehabilitate her. However, it's confirmed later that the rehabilitation technique does not really work on her at all. I guess some aliens just can't be helped. Number 3, Black Hand. William Hand, aka Black Hand, was chosen to be the physical embodiment of death by Guardian Scar, and after killing himself and becoming reanimated, he becomes the leader of the Black Lantern Corps during the Blackest Night. See, I told you we'd circle back. During the Blackest Night, Hand murders each member of his family before killing himself and receiving the Black Lantern ring. With this ring, Black Hand was able to reanimate some of DC's most famous and powerful heroes such as Batman and Superman and so many more. Alongside Necron, Black Hand battles against the heroes of Earth and the Lantern Corps. As stated before, Hand is defeated by Hal Jordan and the White Lanterns after it is revealed that he is Necron's link to the living plane. After he's brought back to life and Necron's defeated, he is then taken by the Indigo tribe, very dazed and confused, and they're set on helping him alter his worldviews, and it seems like it worked. Number 2, Jonathan Crane, aka the Scarecrow. Now, this brilliant psychologist turned supervillain is one of the most terrifying and layered villains in the DC universe. Crane lost his credibility as a psychologist after an experiment gone wrong when he took everything a little bit too far, and then that began his descent into madness. Taking up the name Scarecrow, he uses his immense knowledge of fear and anxiety to mess with his victims and seals the deal with his infamous fear toxin to torture them. When inhaled, this toxin forces the victim to hallucinate and imagine their own worst fear as if it was reality. Just the thought of that completely terrifies me, and that's why I placed him so high on this list. I can't even think about it. And finally, number 1, the Joker. You probably guessed it, but obviously the most terrifying DC villain in my opinion is the Joker. The insane clown prince of crime has been around since the beginning of Batman and is still his arch nemesis. He commits crime for no reason other than his desire to show people how meaningless life is through pain, death, and his signature methods of torture. Constantly flipping between a harmless trickster and a mass murderer, the Joker's mindset is impossible to pinpoint, which makes him all the more terrifying. He seemingly has no morals, willing to go as far as killing Robin, crippling Batgirl, and doing whatever it takes to get the job done, even if it means losing someone on his side. Although there's a lot of mystery around his origins, it is known that he is the way he is because of a chemical accident that ruined his body and mind. Now, despite the Joker being such a prominent villain in the Batman universe, there's so little known about him, and when new information pops up, up about him, it just makes him all the more twisted and terrifying. Look, I'm all for practical jokes and committing to a bit, but he just takes it way too far.
Number 10. Jane Doe. Jane Doe is a mass taker of lives who served time at Arkham Asylum. She appears to not have any skin of her own, with muscle tissue fully exposed, making her one of the most frightening villains to look at on our list, that is for sure. Instead of wearing her own skin, she covets the skin and lives of others. While she doesn't appear to have any specific superpowers, it has been implied that she might be capable of shapeshifting. She often gets to know her victims before taking their lives and adopting their identities, sometimes even wearing their preserved skin as a suit. Ew. Instead of simply using makeup to disguise herself. I mean, honestly, I don't think you should be putting makeup on exposed muscle tissue anyways. That seems like a good way to, I don't know, get an infection or something. I don't even know how Jane Doe has lived like this actually, if she really is as she appears to be. Even with her not wearing makeup and just wearing, I guess, skin suits. I don't know, still seems like it shouldn't be possible, especially if she doesn't have powers. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to show us you love us by clicking that like button. Number 9. Zonas. You might know about Darkseid, who belongs to the new gods, but do you know about Zonas, who belongs to the old gods? After all, for there to be new gods, there have to have been old gods, right? Zonas is one of the old gods and is in fact believed to have been the last old god. He was known as the god of evil, or Yuga Khan. At one point he wielded anti-life, claiming that it was what allowed him to resurrect the old gods, and he is believed to be the original being to first wield Omega Beams. Zonas ended up being trapped in the source, and even after escaping the prison and attempting to destroy all of creation, was defeated and imprisoned there once again. Number 8. Grail. Grail is the villainous daughter of Darkseid, who also acts as an opposing force to Wonder Woman. She was kind of born to be Diana's rival, really. The two women were born at exactly the same time, and it was prophesied that Grail, the daughter of Darkseid and Myrna, would bring about much destruction. As such, she was almost killed as soon as she was born, but her mother protected her. She proved almost right away in the comics that she was a new villain worthy of our time when she made easy work of the Justice League. She and Diana ended up facing off shortly thereafter, with Grail immediately coming across as a promising and deadly new foe. Number 7. Hush. Hush has managed to pull off some of the most horrific schemes over the years, and gotten under Batman's skin many times. And Catwoman's skin. Literally in this case, when he ended up stealing her actual beating heart. Thomas Elliot is not only a powerful villain because of his intense vendetta against the Wayne family and Batman, but because he also is often shown to have the skill and the strength to match even Batman himself, as well as the cunning. In fact, in some cases, he might come across as even more cunning than Batman. He has taken Batman in hand-to-hand combat and fared surprisingly well, and he's managed to set into action motion outlandish plots like when he impersonated Bruce Wayne in an attempt to steal his life. Number 6. Granny Goodness. Her name might not make her sound terrifying, but Granny Goodness is not even close to as sweet as her name sounds. She became a trainer of Darkseid's soldiers after impressing him when she herself was selected to train and become one of his elite hounds. Those out there who are fans of Kingsman may find the story of how she was trained pretty familiar. During her training regimen, she was given a dog to train who stayed with her and progressed alongside her. Think you know where this is going. After bonding with the loyal doggo, who she named Mercy, she was later instructed to dispose of the dog. Goodness refused and instead disposed of her trainer. When Darkseid asked why she had done this, she revealed that Mercy was actually worth more than her trainer had been to Darkseid, as she had trained the dog to not only be loyal to her, but to Darkseid above her. Darkseid tested this theory by, tragically, ordering Mercy to attack and take out Goodness, and was impressed when he found the dog indeed obeyed him. Goodness then was forced to actually dispose of Mercy, but this act would inspire Darkseid to shape and use Granny Goodness as his most reliable trainer and recruiter of soldiers. That's one haunting origin story. Number 5. Infinite Crisis. In the dark multiverse, Ted Kord is not killed by Maxwell Lord. Instead, Ted pretends to agree to join Lord in cleaning house when it comes to his plans for Checkmate, but he betrays Lord and kills him. Brother Eye threatens to push on with the OMAC project, but Kord offers that he could help to guide Brother Eye and take Maxwell Lord's place, help Brother Eye save and protect the planet as Lord had promised Brother would. Ted ends up attempting to recruit Booster Gold to help him with Brother Eye, but Booster isn't so sure about his friend's plan. In the end, he teams up with Superboy Prime, who has been plotting with Alexander Luthor of Earth 3 to create a perfect world in the main continuity, but Luthor betrays him. Superboy and Blue Beetle, who's now directly connected to the Brother Eye, end up teaming up. They end up attempting to take out 50% of Earth's superhero population as recommended by Brother Eye, but in the end they're forced to eliminate or assimilate all of the superhero populace, who obviously are like, no, you can't just kill us, with Ted Kord sacrificing his humanity in order to completely demolish all of that superhero threat. Number 4. The Murder Machine. After the death of Alfred, Batman in his grief seeks to create an AI in Alfred's image and employs the help of Cyborg. Bruce calls the project the Alfred Protocol. Alfred Protocol is also programmed to act as Bruce's infallible bodyguard, and it's this programming which causes everything to go sideways. The Alfred Protocol spreads, taking out every villain, every criminal he deems a threat to Bruce Wayne's life. However, it doesn't end there. The Alfred Protocol also realizes in order to protect Bruce, it also needs to change him, protect him from himself and his emotions by eradicating them, starting with his fear. This change infects and transforms Batman into a cyborg version of himself known as the Murder Machine, who then goes about killing everyone, determining that everyone and his attachment to them is a weakness. Number 3. The Batman Who Laughs. This dark multiverse story was so terrifying it got its own series. The Batman Who Laughs actually got a miniseries to explain just how his story went down. By now we all should mostly know it, but if you haven't read it, it's chilling and thrilling and it's definitely worth a read. In the story, it's explained how Batman became corrupted by Joker venom when he ended up losing control and killing the Joker, triggered by being forced to watch the Joker kill children's parents in front of them before exposing them to Joker venom and driving them insane. When Batman killed Joker, this exposed him to Joker venom, which was released with the Joker's dying breath from his heart. Batman was then driven insane by the venom, becoming a warped Joker-Batman hybrid, and set out killing everyone, even the members of the Bat family, only allowing Damian Wayne to be converted with the venom and join him. He also later confessed that Alfred was one of the last people to try and stop him by blowing him up, but he managed to thwart and capture Alfred and break him, turning him into his own loyal servant once more. Number 2. The Judas Contract. So as bad as the Judas Contract storyline in the main continuity was for the Teen Titans, apparently its consequences could have been a lot more horrific and a lot worse. In this story, Tara finds herself inspired to become her own murderous villain all her own after one of Dick Grayson's inspirational chats. Great job, Dick. Grayson thinks that he's inspired Tara to become her own person separate from Geoforce's shadow though, not Deathstroke's shadow, as he does not know yet that Tara is actually a spy. She ends up unlocking her potential as a result, becoming more powerful than ever, taking up the name Gaia. She not only tears Slade Wilson apart, literally, but she kills the entire team of Teen Titans, even poor Beast Boy, no! And she also kills the entire Justice League. Number 1. Nightfall. If you haven't read the Tales from the Dark Multiverse, you obviously need to, as they are all pretty crazy, and honestly, the scariest tale can be found in this first one issue. This is a spooky retelling of the Batman story Nightfall. When Bruce has his back broken, he passes the mantle of Batman onto Jean-Paul Valley, aka Azrael. But when he returns, Azrael refuses to give up the mantle. Instead of Bruce Wayne and the Bat family winning it back as they did in the main continuity, this time around Bruce fails. He instead is held captive and tortured for 30 years by Azrael, who rules Gotham with a bloody and merciless iron fist as Saint Batman. Bruce eventually escapes with the help of Bane's son, Torn, and his mother, Lady Shiva. But his time in imprisonment, where he was slowly dissected, has changed Bruce, and no longer is he the man and hero we once knew.
Number 10. Doomsday. I have to just assume that Batman is afraid of Doomsday, and there are multiple reasons I believe this. For starters, anytime I've seen Batman even attempt to get involved in a fight with Doomsday, he is never throwing punches. He is either staying the heck out of the way, maybe only acting as a distraction, or he is powered up by some serious magical artifacts. Secondly, Batman is incredibly smart. He knows how hard it is for someone to take down Superman, and the fact that Doomsday is one of the few characters who is able to do it, and with such brutality, there is no way Batman is not intimidated by this monster. I refuse to believe it. Honestly, my favorite point of proof is seeing what Ben Affleck's Batman does in Batman vs Superman. Say what you want about that movie, but Batman jumping around the battlefield just trying his best to stay out of the way? Hilarious. Number 9. Prometheus. As a dramatic inversion of Batman, the tragic figure of Prometheus presents a serious threat to the Dark Knight. Enraged by the passing away of his parents at the hands of law enforcement, Prometheus vows to fight the law with the same intensity intensity that Batman seeks to uphold it. Backed by ludicrous sums of money, Prometheus trains diligently and becomes the bane of police officers and military men across America. Armed with an all-powerful helmet, Prometheus earns godlike powers that give him the strength of the best fighters on Earth. It's no wonder that when he breaks into the Justice League Watchtower, he single-handedly beats the majority of the team, and Batman takes the majority of that shellacking. Prometheus runs the Dark Knight into the ground. It was the first showdown between the two orphans, and Prometheus takes the victory without any effort at all. Hey, are you liking this video? Well, then hit that thumbs up button, rookie. We need your support. Number 8, Zsasz. Victor Zsasz has a character trait that a few others on this list possess. He's just completely and utterly insane. Zsasz scares Batman for one main reason. Whenever he is not locked up, it's almost guaranteed that lives will come to an end, which just ups the ante because every escape of this killer becomes a race against the clock for Batman. He needs to bring him down fast before he adds another scar to his body. Every single one of those scars signifies a failure for Batman. Zsasz is a man with absolutely no form of pity or morals, and he will never stop unless he passes away, but we know Batman will never do that. In an alternate story, Injustice, Zsasz is even responsible for the passing of Alfred Pennyworth, which was not supposed to happen, but because Zsasz is Zsasz, it did. Number 7, Thomas Wayne Batman. Other versions of Batman always have the potential to be a scary thought for our Batman, or anyone, really. But when that version of Batman is Bruce Wayne's own father, who completely destroys him emotionally, teams up with Bane, and is trying to stop Batman being Batman so he can have a normal life, it's an incredibly interesting idea for a character, honestly. But with all the daddy issues Batman has, for his alternate reality father to be so twisted and brutal has got to be a terrifying thought. But what did Thomas do that was so bad? Well, let me tell you. Alongside Bane, he ruined Batman and Catwoman's wedding, causing her to leave him at the altar, nearly had Batman send Mr. Freeze to the afterlife for a crime he did not commit, kidnapped Damian Wayne, hired the KG Beast to take out Dick Grayson, he had Bane put Alfred Pennyworth in the ground, then Thomas incapacitated Bruce with fear toxin and kidnapped him. He dug up the coffin of Martha Wayne, wishing to use the Lazarus Pit to resurrect Martha so that they could all be a happy family again. He went more than a little overboard is what I'm saying. Number 6, the Batman who laughs. Another version of Batman, only this time it's basically the ultimate evil version of himself. A Jokerized Bruce Wayne. He is just absolutely awful. He has all the smarts and skill of Batman himself, but the completely bonkers unpredictability of Joker. And this combo causes the Batman who laughs to become one of the biggest threats to the entire multiverse. Now, being a Jokerized Bruce Wayne, he has a few differences to the man himself. He's thinner and faster, but physically weaker. Unfortunately, physicality in battle with this guy doesn't really matter. He's got backup in the form of his Dark Knights, and he has backup plans on top of backup plans, as any Batman worth his salt would have. This guy put his consciousness into a Batman with the power of Dr. Manhattan and destroyed Perpetua, the first creator of the multiverse and the mother of the Monitor, Anti-Monitor, and the World Forger. Number 5, Superwoman. While Superwoman is technically an alternate version of Wonder Woman, originally she was actually the Lois Lane from Earth 3, who on this world was seemingly an Amazon, as she wielded the lasso of submission instead of truth, which is capable of forcing others to do her bidding and forcing them to love her. But this Superwoman had abilities that were more like a Kryptonian's. She was capable of not only everything Wonder Woman could do, but she could fire beams of red-hot energy from her eyes, and she could fly. She created an incredibly toxic love triangle between Ultraman and Owlman of the Crime Syndicate of America, and even had a child with Owlman, but promised to Ultraman that it was his. This was also while she was having another affair with Alexander Luthor. Damn girl, keep him pretty busy, huh? Yikes. Number 4, Raven from the Last 52 Multiverse. The Batman who laughs comes from the Dark Multiverse, which is the flip side of the regular multiverse, composed of worlds where nightmares become real. All the worst case scenarios actually came to be on these worlds. During the final battle between the Batman who laughs and Wonder Woman, Laughs summons different heroes turned villains from across the Dark Multiverse to help him, and among the various characters is a version of the Teen Titans led by a version of Raven who gave in to her father Trigon, who corrupted both her and her Titans into twisted, powerful versions of themselves. Raven herself becomes a red-skinned, armor-clad demon. She actually looks kind of awesome, but she is undeniably evil and ultimately quite terrifying. Number 3. Furnace. Before the Martians became the Martians, they were an incredibly violent and powerful race called the Burning. The Guardians of the Universe experimented on the Burning and put genetic blocks in place to make them afraid of the fire they used as their most powerful weapon. Now fast forward, after the Justice League was trapped and taken down in Obsidian Age Atlantis, John Johns blamed himself for his friend's passing because his fear of fire completely overtook him. He recruits Scorch to help him overcome this fear, and he would use his telepathy to help her deal with her own problems. Unfortunately, in doing this, he also broke the genetic blocks, allowing John to become the incredibly dangerous Furnace, with all his original powers boosted in potential, especially his telepathy, plus an insane level of pyrokinesis. Number 2. Ultraman. In case you haven't figured out the theme of Earth 3, everyone here is just bad from birth. Ultraman was born on the dying Krypton to Jor-Il, who was able to secure a life pod for his incredibly powerful son, who he saw as his best chance of revenge. While in his life pod, Kal-Il was given the ideology of becoming the strongest possible being, eschewing all weakness in himself and in others. His rocket crash landed in Smallville, right through the home of the dysfunctional couple Johnny and Martha Kent, who he forced to be his parents until he was 7 years old, when he took their lives and burned their home to the ground. He took the name Ultraman, took over the Earth, and created the crime syndicate of America. Now unlike Superman, Ultraman actually gets more powerful from kryptonite, and the sun is what makes him weaker, which is fine because he will literally just move the moon to block out the sun. And in at number 1 is Vampire Batman. In the Elseworlds Batman and Dracula trilogy, Batman goes up against vampires who have turned Gotham into their home, and then eventually Dracula himself. In the first novel, Red Rain, the hero wipes out the vampires and Dracula, although he is transformed into a vampire himself. Which means we get to see Batman take on crime using the powers of a vampire in the next novel, Bloodstorm. He does his bestest to resist the darker aspects of being a vampire, but that all goes kaput when Batman lashes out and drains the Joker's blood after the Joker de-lifed Catwoman. Batman has Alfred and Gordon stake him, putting Batman into a catatonic state, a state that he is revived from in Crimson Mist, the third novel, when criminals took over Gotham in his absence. But he is almost completely animalistic now thanks to the isolation. A bloodthirsty vampire Batman quickly wipes out most of his enemies in a very bloody form, drinking their blood in the process until he is finally put to rest by Alfred, Gordon, Two-Face, and Killer Croc, who all go with him to the grave.
Coming in at number 10, we are starting with Zoom. This starting off with an obvious choice. Eobard Thawne, also known as the Reverse Flash, or Zoom, is the arch nemesis of Barry Allen and has done a great job at keeping the Scarlet Speedster on his toes. Having worshipped the Flash more than anybody, even going as far as to recreate the reaction that gave Barry his powers, and having an operation done so that he could look like Barry Allen, Thawne wanted nothing more than to meet and befriend his hero. His killing tendency unfortunately came up not too long after that, when he killed the cashier at the Flash Museum so he could use the holy grail of all Flash memorabilia, the Cosmic Treadmill, so he could travel back in time to meet his hero. Unfortunately, there was a miscalculation and he ended up appearing several years after Allen's death. Distraught and upset, Thawne escaped to the Flash Museum to get some answers, only to find out that he was destined to become the Flash's greatest nemesis, Zoom. Needless to say, he did not take that news very well, and this set him down on his dark path. Since then, Thawne has done everything in his power to torment the Flash, going as far as killing his mother and fiancé and so much more. Talk about a quick temper. Number 9 is Dr. Destiny. John Dee was a pretty run-of-the-mill villain for the Justice League by creating tech that was more advanced than most people had ever seen, and thanks to this tech he was able to capture Green Lantern and set traps left and right for the Justice League. However, all this changed after he created the Materiopticon, which allowed him to manipulate and alter reality. He was eventually stopped by the Justice League by making him unable to dream, which in turn robbed him of his powers and drove him even deeper into insanity. Dee also appeared with a much darker reboot in Neil Gaiman's Sandman, where he is seen using his Materiopticon to take over a 24-hour diner to fulfill his sadistic desires and purposes. Number 8, Trigon. Now, I understand that teenage angst is a thing and not having a good relationship with your daughter isn't exactly a crime, but Trigon kinda takes that a little bit too far and ends up being the arch enemy of Raven from Teen Titans. Originally the ruler of an unknown alien planet, Trigon was able to absorb the power of the Heart of Darkness, which granted him an insane amount of power, allowing him to kill the Divine once and for all. Not only are his powers something to marvel, but just look at him. His terrifying demonic appearance already makes him someone that I do not want to mess with. However, I feel I could definitely take that sweater vest wearing Trigon from Teen Titans Go. Number 7, Murmur. Being a fairly new member of the Flash's Rogues, Murmur doesn't really have many appearances in the comics, but by no means does that make him any less terrifying. Dr. Michael Amaro was once a very successful and respected surgeon until one day he could no longer take the voices in his head caused by his schizophrenia and decided that a killing spree was the only way to keep them at bay. This spree spread through Central City and Keystone City until he was finally detained by the police with the help of the Flash. With an incredible understanding of human physiology thanks to his many years as a surgeon, and his unique blood type unlike anyone has ever seen, he can't be killed by any lethal injections, this villain is not someone you should mess with. Not to mention, he also cut out his own tongue and sewed his mouth shut. Number 6, Necron. Lord of the Unliving and one of the most powerful beings in the universe, Necron is a manifestation of death and the opposing force of all life itself. Before becoming the Lord of Unliving, we're not entirely sure what or where Necron was. Rumors have circulated that Necron is darkness itself, existing before life entirely, and then others say he was created by the darkness as his protector. First appearing in Tales of the Green Lantern Corps #2 in 1981, Necron's most terrifying moment was his triumphant return in Blackest Night when he formed the Black Lanterns Corps, who I'll be touching on a little bit later. Thanks to the power of those Black Power Rings and the Black Lantern Central Power Battery, Necron was able to begin complete and utter devastation to the world during this time. The only thing that was able to take him down was Hal Jordan and the White Lanterns, who together overpowered Necron by resurrecting the Black Hand, which in turn severs his link with the living plane. With this link gone, his body is completely destroyed and the Blackest Night is over.
Moving on to number 5, Thrill Killer. Thrill Killer was a one-shot 3-issue miniseries published in 1997 that took place on an alternate timeline of Earth 37, set in the early 60s. It sees Batgirl and Robin taking on a female Joker. Now Bruce Wayne works for the Gotham PD and Barbara Gordon has purchased the Wayne Manor, using it to fight crime with her assistant and lover Dick Grayson. The Joker is known as a gangster named Bianca Steeplechase, who eventually poisons Robin, masquerades as the mayor's wife, and ends up kidnapping and torturing Bruce Wayne. Needless to say, it is a dark period piece, all set at the dawn of the sexual revolution and the beginnings of the Vietnam War, and there's a whole lot of death. And it finds Batgirl doing the one thing that Batman in the main continuity refuses to do. She kills the Joker. She drowns her in Gotham River.
Coming in at number 4, The Dark Knight Returns. The Dark Knight Returns is arguably one of the most prolific comic miniseries in DC's history, and is largely responsible for a resurgence in darker, grim takes on the Caped Crusader that often prevails in our depictions of the superhero to this date. Set in a futuristic dystopian Gotham where technology runs rampant, a 55-year-old Bruce Wayne comes out of retirement as Batman to take on a new flood of crime in Gotham City. But he isn't met without opposition. The Gotham PD aren't big fans, nor are a new hyper-violent street gang called the Mutants. When the US government begins to see Batman's return as a major threat, Superman is deployed to take him on, culminating in one of the most memorable battles between the two iconic heroes. Penned by Frank Miller, it's a much more bleak take on the Caped Crusader, featuring him as a hardened, cynical vigilante still suffering from a traumatic past that haunts him every move he makes.
Up next in our number 3 spot, Gotham by Gaslight. One of the most beloved Elseworld stories to date, Gotham by Gaslight is set in the 19th century, following Bruce Wayne's beginnings as the Caped Crusader just as Jack the Ripper has shown up in Gotham City. You can see where this is going. Criminal activity is on the rise in Gotham and Bruce finds himself framed by Jack the Ripper for a series of murders after a bloody knife is found in his bed. After escaping from prison, Bruce ends up discovering the identity of the famous serial killer, a man who had worked with his father Thomas Wayne and went insane after his mother Martha Wayne had rejected his advances, and thus murdered both of them. A sequel was produced as well, Batman Master of the Future, which took place in 1892, a handful of years after Gotham by Gaslight, but it failed to get the same rave reviews as its predecessor. Needless to say, there's murder and it's dark.
In at number 2, Amazonia. From 1997, Wonder Woman Amazonia is a one-shot that takes place between 1888 and 1928 on Earth 19. When a mysterious explosion kills Queen Victoria and all of her immediate family members, a mysterious individual named Jack Planters claims to be a distant heir to the throne and becomes King Jack, a tyrant who actually murdered the royal family in order to come into power. It's implied that this is Jack the Ripper, who had also murdered 4 Whitechapel prostitutes for practice prior to knocking off the royals. So where does Wonder Woman fit into this narrative? Diana, while this is happening, is abducted off of Paradise Island by Steve Trevor, who on this Earth is rather wicked. He forces her to marry him, and by 1928 Diana has become a star in London theatre. But in response to the militaristic society King Jack has created, she organizes a resistance. Under his rule, the British Empire is incredibly misogynistic, has suspended all women's rights, and has declared an unjust war against France. So Diana steps up and ends up working with Jack's son, Prince Charles, to take the tyrant down.
And last but not least, in our number 1 spot, Kingdom Come. Written by Alex Ross and Mark Waid in 1996, Kingdom Come is one of the most nerve-wracking alternate realities to exist within the DC multiverse. It is a deconstructionist tale that explores the toxic dynamic between traditional, out-of-touch superheroes and a new generation of vigilantes who are largely amoral and irresponsible, and not above committing murder and other heinous acts to stop criminals. Batman, of course, finds himself in the middle of these two groups, trying to de-escalate the tension in hopes of preventing a metahuman war. The Justice League has stepped down, and a new team of heroes led by a character named Magog have put the Earth in peril. During an attack on Parasite, thanks to their reckless planning, millions of Americans are irradiated and killed, and a large portion of the America's food population is wiped out entirely, putting the nation in precarious circumstances. And it only goes downhill from there, so definitely read that one, no spoilers.